The Earth is about to do something it hasn't done for thousands of years. The magnetic poles are shifting, the strength of Earth's magnetic field is fading. There are magnetic changes throughout the solar system and on the sun. We're going to be showing you stories of this cycle of disaster that will visit us again soon. We'll begin with the pole shift. It's real, and it's going to happen. In fact, it's already happening. There are major magnetic pole shifts every 12,000 years called geomagnetic excursions. You can find information on all of them when you search the science journals. This happens very regularly, and it has already started happening again now. The Earth began its magnetic shift in the 1850s, but it has progressed more since the year 2000 than it had in the 150 years or so before. The shift is accelerating, and will keep accelerating. These events coincide with major climate shifts in the past, volcanic events, and biosphere stress that results in the extinctions of species. After the scientific field went back and forth on this topic for decades, the conclusive study was performed in the world's #1 geophysics journal. These magnetic excursions take out several species and cause serious stress on the entire food chain, through not only volcanoes and climate shifts, but extra space radiation, navigational issues with birds, mammals, and marine creatures. These shifts can happen very rapidly. In fact, if the next one happened tomorrow, it already wouldn't be the fastest one in history after having been ongoing now for more than 150 years. When it reaches peak acceleration, it will be shifting 100 times faster than today, or more, and we'll just have months left, maybe weeks. This is a story with 1,000 pieces, but they come together to tell a scary future for our planet, and it's told in the rock, sediment, the fossils, and the cooled lava. Let's next address the fact that this event seems to be hitting the whole solar system. Let's further take a step out to the galactic level very quickly. The galaxy has a rippling electric current sheet, just like stars, our sun, and like energized sphere magnets in a lab. In our galaxy, the wave height, the amplitude, and the wavelength have been analyzed, and based on a speed of around 600 to 800 kilometers per second of outward radial flow, they should be hitting our solar system about every 12,000 years. This current sheet contains the galactic magnetic reversal point, not the galactic equator as incorrectly is believed by many. It is this galactic magnetic reversal, expected about every 12,000 years, that is impacting our solar system, and which is the driving force behind the overall 12,000-year disaster cycle of Earth. Up next, what about those changes in the solar system? Well, Venus's fastest winds are now blowing harder and faster, in fact about 33% faster. Mars has seen more climate change than Earth has, increasing seismic activity, and is even now believed to have an active, alive mantle. Jupiter has had many cloud changes, including to the Great Red Spot, but its most interesting change is in the radio signals coming from its magnetic fields. This is a direct indication that those magnetic fields are changing, which would also explain the cloud anomalies, as on Earth we know that solar and geomagnetic conditions impact the clouds. Saturn's 30-year orbit is eccentric, and every 30 years, at its closest point to the Sun, a superstorm forms in the northern hemisphere due to the increased solar energy input to the system. It just came 10 years early for the first time in the telescope record. Record auroral activity on Uranus, along with record storm activity, is another indication of a changing magnetic condition. Neptune just had a storm reversal, and that's a big deal. Neptune storms follow patterns just like Earth hurricanes follow patterns. Now imagine a hurricane formed off the coast of Florida and shot eastward across the Atlantic and hit Africa. That can't happen, right? Well, it just did on Neptune. Lastly, Pluto lost 20% of its atmosphere in less than 2 years, far more than is expected due to freeze-out in Plutonian winter. How does a planet lose its atmosphere so rapidly? Same way Mars did long ago. The magnetic field collapses in a major shift. So that's magnetic shift evidence on all the planets, and yes, we've got it on the Sun as well. There is a noticeable coronal magnetic field shift and a corresponding helium chemistry change. If the galactic magnetic reversal is impacting the entire solar system, we should see those magnetic changes on all the planets and the Sun, and we absolutely do. But wait, if the galactic current sheet is radially moving outward from the galactic center, shouldn't we have seen the closest stars towards the center of the galaxy being impacted? Because of the distance between stars, we can really only look to the closest ones, the Proxima Centauri system and Barnard's star. There is also AD Leo, which is a star about the same distance away from the galactic center that we are, but several light years to the north. All three have had outburst activity at superflare levels or higher. But can the galactic current sheet produce a recurring micronova on the Sun? Yes, because there are two ways scientists know how those recurring nova are triggered elsewhere in space. One is a magnetic kick to the star, and the other is to dump material onto the star, an accumulation called accretion. It just so happens that the galactic current sheet, bringing the galactic magnetic reversal, delivers the magnetic kick, and that extra dust, neutrals, and ions coming with the sheet is the material dumped onto the star. Both known methods of making a nova combined into one with the galactic current sheet. After the first ever nova study that actually included magnetic field influence, we know that the isotopes stuck to the dust can't make it out of the nova remnant. So, those here at Earth arriving every 12,000 years have to be from our star. The isotopes tell us what we need in terms of what a star must do. The galactic current sheet brings both known methods in one, and they can't be coming from some other star. The coincidences are really piling up now. And as it turns out, events like the solar micronova at various stars finally fixed the long-standing galactic physics problem. They knew the current sheet existed and extended throughout the galaxy, but their models couldn't resolve how it was sustained at that distance. Well, it just so happens, if you inject nova energy directly into the magnetic system of the galaxy at the current sheet, it gives it the juice to persist and sustain. So, the current sheet triggering stellar outbursts actually fixes galactic physics. Last year, after many years of swearing up and down it wasn't possible, that it wasn't a thing, astronomers have finally admitted that micronova exist. These events recurring at the Sun are not only the only explanation for the Earth isotope evidence, they not only can be triggered two ways by the galactic current sheet, but they are also actually needed to explain our real universe observations of the galaxy. Same story, different fields of science. So let's come back to Earth. Every catastrophist throughout history included the Earth tilting, turning over, and creating massive tsunamis as the oceans slosh around. Einstein and several others agreed that it would be the unlocking of the crust from the mantle that would cause the shift, but they couldn't figure out how. How do you unlock the crust? With modern evidence, we now know that the crust is locked with a thermoelectric equilibrium, and scientists already know the sun's impacts induce electric current into the mantle, right through that crust-mantle boundary. The solar micronova surges enough of that current to disrupt the thermal and electrical aspects of that thermoelectric equilibrium, unlocking the crust. So, the micronova is also needed to finally finish the stories of the catastrophist claims that the Earth tilts, turns, and triggers massive tsunamis. Interestingly, several scientists in Einstein's time also did the math on what would happen if they could unlock the crust. The ice weight at the polar region would want to spin at the equator, the point of greatest centrifugal force, and the greatest bulk of ice happens to want to tilt Earth such that Greenland would end up at the equator, and so would the portion of Antarctica that is south of Australia. This would put the Bay of Bengal in the Indian Ocean and Peru at the north and south poles, which is exactly what was predicted long ago by several other catastrophists who didn't have that ice math from Einstein's time, which is absolutely amazing. But it's not just a two-way coincidence there. The magnetic poles are already moving, as we mentioned, and they are set to meet one another, to collide in the Bay of Bengal, with Peru, of course, being on the opposite side of the planet. If the planet tilts as previously predicted, and as the later math would suggest it will just so happen to put the magnetic poles back at the north and south geographic pole. That's perhaps the greatest coincidence of them all, and yet, just another on our list. The story grows even more interesting when we realize that religious texts and mythological stories say exactly this will happen. How many of these coincidences are we supposed to ignore? Well, let's add on another one. It seems the governments and elites are preparing for exactly this. They are acting recklessly because they know there will be no reckoning. They are spending like there's no tomorrow because on a realistic timeline, there isn't one. Celebrities and billionaires are buying doomsday bunkers at a surprising rate. It is the same story told by Earth's history, paleoclimatology, paleomagnetism, fossils, sediment, solar system physics, astrophysics, galactic physics, modern observations, math, religion, culture, and the movement of the elites matches up. Current rate of change suggests we have only 10 to 20 years left. So will you acknowledge the mountains of evidence singing the same song, or will you let the world distract you? Will you let disbelief dissuade you? Your future and your children's future depends on your answer.